Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. That's right. We're actually back for I don't know. I don't
I think we're
know if I
back.
want
I
to
think
say
we're
much
back.
more, but we're back. We're back. It's been so long.
False
We're so
promises right out
sorry.
the bat, baby.
I'm so sorry.
Let's go.
If you're listening right now, we are back for the time being. We have been saying this every episode. I do apologize. It's been so long, but it's good to be back. Last week, if you missed it, hopefully you joined us. We kind of did a soft launch. Carver and I were able to join Jake from 50 Plus Donner to be on their live show, which was really fun. If you've never checked out that show before, said it so many times. Every time we've had Jake on, it's great, but I love what they're doing for the Bundesliga in general. Not just the main Bundesliga, but Frauen Bundesliga, Bundesliga 2. Those guys are just hardcore German soccer fans, and it's cool to be on that show. And especially because we did get to talk so much Dortmund. I wasn't expecting that when we went into it. I thought we were going to kind of cover things generally. But if you're like, dang, Jake and Carver have been gone forever, it's true. But we were able to talk some Dortmund last week, and it was really fun. So Carver, you got anything else to add on?
I know a lot of
Honor?
people were asking that same question. Where are these two? That was on everyone's minds. But no, I appreciate the listener hanging out with us. It's fun to be back.
Before we dive into Dortmund, I just went on a long rant and spiel, but Carver, I think, deserves some congratulations are in order for your high school soccer, your season that's going on right now. Not that Carver's in high school, but if you don't know, Carver, you're the team that you're coaching. I just want you to talk about that a little bit because it's cool.
Yeah, we beat the state champions last night in a district tournament, and we were the much lower seed and somehow pulled it out. Not only beat them, but outplayed them as well. So that was very fun. But also, we deserve to be the spot that we're in right now. So we're looking forward to another game tomorrow. And then the season will likely be over after that. And we'll be here a lot more regularly. So
I think I'm going to try to catch this last match. I did take photos at one of your games, which was really fun. Maybe I'm just full of false promises. I'm like, I'll come take more photos. Haven't done that yet. We'll do more episodes. It's been a while since we've done episodes too. No, it's awesome. I'm excited to go watch the game. But let's talk Dortmund. It's been a while. Carver mentioned before we started recording, we think we've missed like 17 matches. So it's probably too much to recap. But this week, I mean, technically last week because Dortmund had the Friday game against Augsburg. More recently, the defeat away at Man City in the Champions League. So we'll talk about those. We'll talk about just how the season is going generally in the roster, in the schedule. And we do, of course, have another BVB Frauen update, which we will get into. But yeah, Carver, let's jump into Augsburg. It feels like the game was so long ago. And because it was, and just because the fact that we haven't recorded in forever, it feels like everything's so long ago and everything kind of blends together. But Augsburg on the weekend.
One of the dullest games I've seen from Dortmund in a long time, and I really don't have much to add here. We didn't create or provide much of anything in that second half. We at times defended deep and played on the counter. It was a very, very dull game. We pulled out the win. And we've said this before, our football has not been pretty. It's not been the most eye-catching or sensationalizing at times, sure, but Kovac, for the most part, is pretty effective at getting results against teams that, albeit Augsburg, pretty shit at the moment, and they're continuing that downward spiral. Dortmund have a tough time getting at points away at Augsburg on average these past few years. So the fact that we were able to get out of there with yet another clean sheet, one of the very few teams in the Bundesliga that has several clean sheets at this point. The defense is still pretty stable, and we'll get into the cracks that we definitely saw and other concerns that we saw at Man City. But either way, another big win in the Bundesliga.
And just rolling through the lineup, Kobel in goal. Obviously, we had Benza Baini, one of the center backs, along with Anton, and then Anselmino getting the start, which is a surprise. Good to see. I don't know, however you want to frame it up. Like I'm happy to see him get some minutes because he, of course, had such a great start making his debut just a few days after joining the club and had a really strong showing in that. He gets the start in this one across the midfield. If I'm actually just reading off FOTMob right now, so I don't know how accurate this is necessarily. Bayer. It's List Bayer at left back with
That's
Mecha.
accurate, actually. That's accurate. And we were debating that on the Discord, actually, if we were going to maybe do the back four for the first time this season, and it's turned out to be Bayer playing at wingback. Yep.
And then Mecha and Gross in the middle, Kuto right-sided wingback. And then I know I don't want to say like a lot of people have been calling for Brandt to start, but I think we have been seeing some nice minutes from Brandt while it's limited minutes, while it's coming on in his sub role. He has been able to come in and make impacts in games. So he gets to start this time, and then Chukwuemeka gets to start as well. I want to say probably not the best showings from them, and maybe that's a reason we haven't been seeing them get the start if people have any question marks. And then, of course, Girassi up top who gets the goal. But did you have any players, if anything you want to touch on Anselmino? Did you want to touch on Chukwuemeka or Brandt, or any standout performances, good or bad, from this one?
Well, I've been calling for Chukwuemeka to be a regular starter in this team for a while now, and it, I don't want to have a go at him as an individual, because as a collective, we generated what, zero.3 xG this entire game against Augsburg, and little to none of that was in the second half. So, not a lot going forward. That's one of my biggest concerns for this team at the moment, is just a lack of creativity once we get into the attacking third. And we're trying something a bit different at times. I think if I'm not wrong, the first time against Bayern, we went to a 3-5-2, or I guess you could still call it 3-4-3, whatever way you want to look at it, with the diamond, and playing us a 10 with Adeyemi and Girassi playing up top. And then back here you have, two center attacking mids with Brent and Chukwuemeka. Maybe that can help unlock the Augsburg defense. But there was just not a lot of momentum or rhythm in this game, and that stayed true all 90 minutes. Just, very, very dull in general. I don't have too many other takeaways from that. The defense was pretty solid for the most part. Anselmino, another great showing here in the Bundesliga. I know there was a few concerning moments in the Pokal, but he bounced back in this game. So, pretty solid performance from the defense.
So I pulled up the table just because I know it has been a while. And last week we got to talk about Dortmund season generally, and I kind of want to dive into that just because I don't want to pretend like we've been having episodes every week like we have been. So it's nice, since it's been a while, to kind of look at things more holistically in general. And what I said last week, if you missed the show with 50 plus done, or like one thing that stood out to me, or like how I think Jake asked this, like, how do we feel like this season's going? How do we feel like Kovac is doing? In my mind, I'm like, we're currently sitting third on 20 points. We've, of course, drawn 2 games, lost 1. We're sitting behind Bayern, who has a perfect record right now, 9-0-0. They've got 27 points. And then Leipzig sit ahead of us by 2 points, 22 points there in second. And so when I look at the table, like, because generally I feel good in the Bundesliga, because I feel like we've just kind of been trucking along and getting results. Of course, we had the Bayern loss, and we've had those couple draws which were disappointing. But in general, I think the start of the season has felt good to me, but that's because I think we've had such bad starts to the season the last couple of years. So in my mind, it feels all right for now. And I feel like there's another gear we can click into. We can still turn it up a notch, but I know it's November, and I'm already slightly concerned, like, are we going to be able to maintain, just because I don't like sitting in third at this moment. When I feel like we're doing okay or good, then I want us to be closer to Bayern. So it's like, can we actually maintain this race? Can we keep it going?
Yeah, Kovac you hit the nail right on the head. I'm pretty sure Kovac has a quote that's very similar to that, where he said that there is another gear that this team is able to kick into. We're just still finding our rhythm with things. There are players that are growing into this team, into this system. And like you mentioned, we're getting results out of the 15 competitive games we've played this season. We've only lost 2 of them. One of them was in the Champions League, and then the other one was against Bayern, both top teams. I think there is definitely some takeaways there, that 2 of the bigger teams that we played against, we were unable to get a result. But there is still a clear identity in this team in terms of just having the discipline. We're able to claw ourselves out of some really tough situations in games and stabilize. The first 10 minutes against Man City, we actually looked pretty optimistic. We're on the front foot. Man City found their rhythm, really started pounding into us, and I was nervous that we were going to collapse, because that's what Dortmund tends to do at times under previous managers. But they were able to find their footing. Of course, we ended up losing 4-1, and that's a pretty harsh score line. And there's definitely some, further takeaways from the defensive side of things. There's some individual lapses that we could talk about, but the team fought back, and there were moments that we could have scored more. And it just comes down to Girassi, and not just him, but he's been having slumps lately. Schlotterbeck has been having some slumps lately. The leaders in this team need to step up a bit more. I mentioned the lack of creativity in that final third. Adeyemi, while being probably the most dangerous player in recent weeks for this team, he's still lacking that consistency every single game. I'm still seeing the gaps that are getting smaller, sure, and the larger moments that he's finding and is more apparent in these games, but there still needs to be a bit more consistency, in my opinion, for him. And then Bayer's the same way with Girassi, kind of just cold at the moment, but also Bayer has not really hit the ground running this season in general either. So maybe Duranville coming back. He's played with the U23s, if I'm not mistaken, recently. Got some minutes there. There were some good moments that he had there. I think he could be a good boost for this team in terms of the creativity, the ball retention, just being able to unlock some teams, because there were some easy passes that Guirassy messed up against Man City. There were some easy passes that Bayer, or just plays in general, that I think Bayer could have done better on. Looking at Brandt as well, apparently there's talks about a new contract for him now, with Sebastian Kehl looking at a performance-based contract. It's been kind of his signature since being a sporting director here at Dortmund, but not sure how I feel about that still. Not really sure how Brandt has earned it. And when you look at the reports for possible extensions for other players too, it still makes me scratch my head a bit. But hopefully we can continue to improve those players that I mentioned, but also bring in some reinforcements here in the January window. We're only 2 months away now, and we're close. I think there's definitely some clear ideas that we could have going in this transfer window to really give this team the boost to continue riding the stability and the momentum that we built in the spring from Kovac.
So, I mean, the exception of the Juventus game, we let in 4 goals. In this Man City game, we lose 4-1. But overall, like, I guess mainly looking at the Bundesliga, like, it does feel we have that stability, especially in the back line, even going in when we're like, we have no center backs, and I still hold by that we could use a couple more center backs, but we have been defensively solid. And like, I'm optimistic that we can hit that next gear, like Kovac is saying. I think we can do that because it feels pretty apparent. Like you were just mentioning those guys up top, like Guirassy, of course, will get his goals even if he has these slumps, but we really need those other guys, like those guys who are playing those 210s or coming in as wingers. Like we need those guys to step in consistently, because I don't think I could tell you, or I don't think I could pick like the absolute standout starters in those positions right there. Like it's been Bayer and Adeyemi, but we're not always seeing the consistency there. Like, of course, Guirassy's going to get the start up top. Like, I don't think Fabio Silva is really going to push him for that spot. Like he's in to just have some depth and some help when needed. But I know he got his goal a couple weeks ago, but I want to see him coming in and making more of an impact. I don't want to just see him coming in just to come in. If we need to make a sub, but I think Guirassy's locked in up top. But it is those other 2 positions where we really need to see them step up to take this team to the next level. Is there any, like, do you have any thoughts on that, or like midfield? Like, what are you seeing? How do you see us take that next step if we actually want to keep pushing and push to the next level this season?
Well, we've been talking about center backs for way too long now. I think a number 10 at this point. I'm really hoping, the reports of Brandt being extended are not true, unless, there's something that we're not seeing and he's able to kick himself into the gear that we saw from a few seasons back and he can start providing again. But there's a serious lack of quality and creativity for those number 10s. And I think an argument could be made for a number 6 as well. Salihamidzic is the only number 6, to my recollection, that Sebastian Kehl has ever signed as a sporting director, and that was for a bargain at the time. We thought that was going to be a very solid signing, and albeit, for those first few months, he looked, very pragmatic, smart on the ball. He was clean in his tackles, yada. He turned out to be a very underwhelming player for the most part. And maybe there's still a player in him. He's only in his mid-20s, and there's reports of him maybe returning to Cologne. Could be a solid, regular Bundesliga player in there still somewhere. But there needs to be higher quality at the number 6. I'm not sure if Job is that player, even though Job, I think, is improving his general game almost day by day at this point. He had massive blocks against Augsburg that kept them at bay. Job was able to get up the field and provide 2 assists in the Champions League game against Copenhagen as well, getting stuck in on challenges more. Maybe there's an argument to be made for Job dropping a bit deeper and just having the partnership between Job and Mecha. They both got big frames in them. They're both athletes. They're both driven and purposeful whenever they get on the ball. And they're both similar players in general. There's obviously some differences, but maybe there's an argument to be made there. But number 10, number 6, center backs, and then maybe looking at another wing back as well. Because Benzabaini is primarily a center half at this point, and Svensson not only needs a rest, but that stellar of a season that he's had either so far. So I think some rotation could help him as well, not only with staying fresh, but also just giving him some healthy competition. Those would be my things I think the club should be addressing here in this January window.
Yeah, with Job, like I see him a little more as an 8. And while, yeah, he could probably do a job and he can be really physical in that 6th position, I think you're right. Like if we just imagine if we had like a specialist 6, like just a straight up 6 starting, like I'm not, like you said, we have Sally Oschamp, but we know he's not, he's obviously not starting potential. We sent him out on loan and now he's back and not seeing any time. So imagine if we had that. And I do think as far as incomings, like we definitely have to see some outgoings too. We did see Emre Can get some minutes in this Man City game. It's been quite a while since we've seen him. And I mean, of course, we all thought he was probably going to be out the door in the summer. And part of that is maybe because the injury, but I think we really need to see some guys moving on in this winter. Whether that's a loan just to get them out for now until we can figure out a solution. But it looks like before we can bring in any midfielders, I think we got to move some guys out for sure. But it'd be so nice if we had that position kind of really locked in with a specialist and just a guaranteed starter. Like we want to bring in guys who are going to make us better and stronger. So, and then, yeah, someone who can kind of unlock that position up top too. I think you're dead on.
It's really hard for me to imagine Chan being a 6 at this point. You know, like there was those 2.5 years where he was kind of back and forth, but since then he's pretty much exclusively been a center half because he's been so reckless. He's been careless with his passes. I mean, he was able to break a few lines actually pretty well in that Man City game, those first few minutes, but then one of his passes that he ended up giving away to City ended up being resulting in the 4th goal scored against us. So, 5 months out, comes back in, and then immediately is part of a situation where we concede a goal. So, I mean, whether directly or indirectly, it doesn't really matter. There needs to be higher quality there. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces that the club definitely needs to figure out. Yeah, I'm curious to see how we further develop Job into whatever role we're looking for. I'm looking forward to him also just gaining more confidence and understanding of driving the ball forward too whenever he's receiving. Job at times, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or not, but I'm seeing a lot of his first action being negative, going backwards. And I'd like to see him be on the half turn a bit more and advance. And you saw Jude doing a lot whenever he was at Dortmund, and not, to dive into the comparisons too much. But I think Job is definitely going to have quality of similar level once he gains more of an understanding and confidence of just when to drive forward and when to find better progress options. And that comes as growing as a player.
So I know we've kind of been jumping in and out of the Man City game, but just going over the lineup real quick. Kobel in goal, Benzabaini again, Schlotterbeck and Anton are center backs. Svensson back on the left with Mecha, Sabitzer, Rierson, Bayer, Adeyemi, Kirasi. We mentioned that we saw Chan come in. Chukwuemeka got some minutes. Job again, Gross, and Fabio Silva, as I mentioned up top. How do you see us in the Champions League right now? Like I think I'm less concerned with we're still kind of figuring out this new phase of player, right? Because I believe we finished in the top 8 last year. And I know one of the biggest criticisms of the tournament in general last year, this isn't Dortmund specific, but you look at the matchup with, I guess when you see like where you finish, what that gets you as far as like who you play in the next round, the easier opponents. And I know the biggest criticism of the tournament is Liverpool then played PSG right off the bat. Liverpool finished top of the table and then had to play PSG in one of the knockout rounds of the tournament, which could have been the final. But yeah, that happened so early on. So with that and looking how I feel like I remember last year we got in the knockout stages, we got a decent draw and we did finish in the top 8. I don't think that's necessarily the case because I still think this first phase is very hit or miss. It's almost like, I don't know, it just feels very random. And so as long as we just progress, like that's where I want to land. It's a pretty big window to progress. But yeah, your thoughts in our performances in the Champions League so far, because we talked about the Bundesliga. This match was like, do you see this match as humbling at all or just more like we had a stumble?
I think it further exposes the drop of quality compared to these other teams. Now, Man City, an infinite cash flow and the resources at their disposal, they could do whatever they want. And when you see the substitutions coming on in this game, it's just like, this is unbelievable. And Bayern, of course, completely different wage bill than us. But I still think we can reduce that gap. Kovac believes that we can reduce that gap, not only with the people coming in this winter transfer window, but also just continuing to improve as a collective too. I I think we can still progress through this next stage of the Champions League. Beginning of the season, I had my concerns, but we were able to stabilize ourselves across the board in all competitions so far. I mentioned already getting results against teams, but also just in games in general that we would have lost last year. Like a year ago, almost today, we were knocked out early in the Pokal against Wolfsburg, deep into the second half of added time. This was no different from Frankfurt, but we actually were able to pull out the win in penalties. And there's a few other examples you could point to as well, where it's like that would have been a toss-up, if not a loss last year. So there's definitely some stability there and discipline. We just need to find that extra 10% and bring more quality into that attacking third against these higher opposition teams. And then just from the defensive side too, I think there's some basics that we can continue to get right too. I mean, Schlotterbeck had some blunders here in this Man City game, whether it's him failing to step up quick enough to shut down the likes of Foden. Foden was finding those acres of space in the half space a handful of times that game. He was able to score twice, and if I'm not wrong, even find himself in a position to shoot a third time before anyone was able to step up and challenge him. Not to mention there was like a weird instance towards the end of the game with Schlotterbeck and Savinho getting a yellow card with the referee, but Schlotterbeck shows him the ball instead of shielding off. Just very bizarre decisions there. You look at these teams that are playing on wide areas. I mean, Svensson got cooked a few times. Rierson got cooked by Doku a few times. So there's definitely some areas of improvement for the defensive side as well, albeit, this is a much better defensive Dortmund that we've seen in recent years comparatively.
Yeah, I think the table in the Champions League is so weird to analyze. And as long as you kind of just finish in those spots where you can move on, as long as you start strong, I think you have a good chance of moving on. And we are currently sitting in 14th.
We're out of that bracket, but there's some favorable draws coming up. Villarreal at home, right at the end of November. Now it's kind of squeezed in between some other difficult fixtures from the likes of Stuttgart. We play Leverkusen twice, once in the league, once in the Pokal right after that. So there's going to be some fixture congestion there. But at home against Villarreal, and then a few weeks after that, we're playing Bodo Glimt at home again. So that should be 6 points right there, and we're right back in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we can definitely finish strong with the rest of the games. We have the Champions League, Bodo Glimt at home. You mentioned Spurs away. I think we should be able to turn Spurs over at home. I think they've won, I think I heard they've won 4 games at home in the calendar year.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of Spurs actually this season so far because I'm a big Thomas Frank fan. And this is January 20th by the time we play Spurs, so over 2 months away. But and things could obviously change, but they're very hit or miss at the moment. There's been some games that they should have won and they ended up not winning. So who knows where it's going to be at that point. Spurs are going to Spurs.
Yeah, at this moment, I think that's definitely a game we should win. But you like you said, there's plenty of time until then. And then we have Inter at home. Obviously, that's going to be the toughest, I think, but it is at home, so I expect to win that win. I think Inter's a team that we can definitely beat. So I think we're in a decent position in the Champions League. I think we should be moving on for sure. I will knock on wood just to be safe. But any other thoughts with how Dortmund is rolling right now, or do you want to get into the BVB Frauen?
Well, I touched on the attack. I touched on the defense. The only thing that comes to mind that I've a takeaway that calls for a little bit of concern is just being outnumbered in midfield at times. In the 3-4-3 system, you're going to be coming across plenty of teams that have 3 in the midfield, which is obviously a numerical advantage as opposed to our 2, especially whenever we have a team that there is no really a pure number 6 and they're not able to cover spaces and block passing lanes with just more understanding that a lot of other players that we have, we're often finding ourselves at times outnumbered and just outplayed in midfield. So that's yet another thing that Kovac needs to be taking note of for these next few months as we continue to go deeper and deeper into this season. Thankfully, we've got a lot of depth in this department. There are some things that you could try, whether it's in trainings, but also just in games here to, try to fix those problems.
Is there a 6 in mind? Do you have a 6 in mind that you would love to see Dortmund sign?
No, I haven't given it that much thought, but also it's tough to find one that's going to be able to fit our current finances too. I mean, we're a team that does not spend a fraction really of what other Premier League clubs can to get some of these quality number 6s, but I can continue looking into it though.
I don't know, I mean, Carver and I usually don't get too crazy in the transfers anyway, but I know everyone else does. So I know everyone else might have someone in mind. So let us know any 6 we might be able to actually afford come to Dortmund in the winter. In the comments on whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify, let us know with the little comment thing, or chime in on our Discord, which I haven't plugged yet. I feel like I haven't plugged it in so long, and that's because we haven't done an episode in so long. So hope things are great over in Discord land. If you want to join us there, not only chat with us throughout the week during match days, but if you just want to get to know some other Dortmund fans from all across the world, then make sure you join us in our Discord. The link for that is in the description of this episode. Carver, you got a BVB Frauen update for us?
Just a quick one here. So we are a few months into the season now for the BVB Frauen in the Regional Liga West, 3rd division, and they are 2nd still. 2 of the league's top scorers are dedicated to Dortmund players, with Rita Schumacher with 13 goals and Dana Marquardt. Apologies, Dana, probably butchered that last name, but she's got 14 goals. So 2 of the league's top scorers are coming from Dortmund. We're still banging in a lot of goals. But these next few weeks, if you look at their schedule, very, very challenging, but it's very interesting and a good test, a good measuring stick to see where we're at here in terms of just the oppositions that we have lined up. So 3 of our next 4 league games are against teams in the top 5 in the Regional Liga West. And then in addition to those 3 out of 4 games, another one in the Verbandspokal, we have the Rivierderby again against Schalke on November 25th. So there's a handful of teams that we're playing that are not only higher quality from the likes of FC Köln, play them here in a few weeks, and they are actually in 1st in this division. Again, to my knowledge, only 1 team gets promoted out of Regional Liga West. So we're going to need to overcome them at some point if we're looking to get promoted again. And that would be a great opportunity to do that, but also to just either keep other teams at bay or continue to widen the gap between us and other teams as well. With these other teams like Bayer Leverkusen, we're going to be playing against here soon. Dortmund will play Essen this weekend, November 9th, and Essen currently sit 5th. And then again, we'll have Verbandspokal shortly after that. We'll play Leverkusen U23s, and Leverkusen 23 is in 4th place right now. And then right after that, on December 7th, is whenever we play Köln, who again is in 1st place. So some good oppositions coming up. We have the Rivierderby, and it's looking more and more likely that Dortmund are not going to be having even the men's team might not be having a Rivierderby next year. And with Schalke being knocked out of the Pokal, we're definitely not having one this year either in either competition. So this is a great opportunity to, again, hop back on the Frauen, see some great, passionate Rivierderby football between those 2, but also just continue supporting them to see, again, what this measuring stick can look like against these higher oppositions. And if we can maybe leapfrog Köln here going into the new year, would be very, very exciting.
Yeah, and again, it's been forever since I've said it, so I'm going to say it again. If you want to stay up to date with BVB Frauen, if you have no idea what we're talking about, if you're a newer listener, we've been following the women's team since their first season, which
since their conception. Yeah.
Shout out to Adam Dorosky, who we got connected with pretty early on. And yeah, it's been so cool following their journey through promotion after promotion after promotion.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more, they do have an Instagram. It's BVB09 Frauen, but we've got some resources in our Discord. And then in the link in the description of this episode too, if you want to follow along to see how they are doing, especially when they got these exciting matches coming up. And then on Saturday, just before we go, Dortmund away at Hamburg. Hit all the pronunciations just so I might have got it wrong a couple times, but I might have got it right too. But yeah, Dortmund's away, 9:30 Eastern time on Saturday morning. Carver, any thoughts on this one?
It's been a long time since we played Hamburg. 2018 is the last time we played them, and that was in the Bundesliga. So it's been quite a long time. Hamburg are a very historic, fun, traditional club. I'm excited for another clash between them. They've been kind of up and down in the Bundesliga, mostly down this season. I'm hoping that this can be another 3 points for us. We've been pretty solid on the road for the most part. Again, only 1 loss in the Bundesliga so far. We need to maintain this momentum to not only try to reduce the gap between us and Bayern, but also continue to leapfrog, if not widen the gap between us and Leipzig. I cannot be behind them towards the end of the season. It's not acceptable. So that's going to be our first step forward here going into this weekend.
Yeah, they're sitting in 13th. Some notable wins. They did beat Mainz 4-0. They beat Heidenheim a couple times, but they've also they lost at home to Wolfsburg. They drew Union Berlin. They lost to Bayern 5-0. But yeah, I think it's winnable. I think even if we're not at our best, we've seen we're able to get these results away where we have maybe struggled before. Even when we do struggle, we can sometimes pull it out under the Kovac era. So hoping for the win this weekend. Do you have any score predictions? It's been a while since we've done that too.
I forgot to mention too, Fabio Vieira, one of Hamburg's starting players and just on loan from Arsenal, was suspended last game against Cologne. My fault. So he will be unavailable for this match. So hopefully that's another blow for them. I'm going to go 2-0 us.
I was also thinking 2-0, but I'll be a little different. And given the result on Friday, I'll say a nice stressful 1-0
They've
win.
only scored 8 goals in the Bundesliga this season, which is tied for last.
Well, I didn't say I think they'd score. I just said I think
I'm just saying that's
maybe
why
struggle to
I'm
score.
justifying my decision for a clean sheet. And in general, Dortmund have been doing a very good job at conceding very few goals this season.
All right, I think that's it for us. Carver, you got anything else?
Thank you for coming back to the listener, and our falls are winding down, so we'll be here. We won't have another month break. That is a guarantee.
Well, we do have the international break coming up. I did mean to mention that too. So after Hamburg, we've got the international break. So it might be a couple weeks. Maybe we'll give an update here and there.
It won't be a month though.
It won't be a month, and we will be back. We promise, even if we're like recording it somehow remote on the road. I don't know if you're traveling anywhere, but we'll figure it out. We might not be sitting in these chairs, but we'll figure it out if we have to. And we appreciate you guys hanging out and listening. As always, we will talk with you sometime soon. Enjoy the match this weekend. See ya.